Hello, I'm Nadia Jani and you're watching A News. Here are your top stories. Israeli strikes hit a hospital in Gaza, killing 20 people, including several journalists. Germany, Norway and Canada have reaffirmed aid commitments and defence support to Ukraine. And anti-migrant protests build outside a UK hotel housing asylum seekers. First tonight, Israel struck Nasser Hospital in the south of Gaza Strip on Monday, killing at least 20 people, including 5 journalists who worked for Reuters, the Associated Press, Al Jazeera and others. Officials at the hospital and witnesses said Israel then struck the site a second time, killing more journalists as well as rescue workers and medics who had rushed to the scene to help. Israel's military, the Israel Defense Forces, acknowledged striking the area of Nasser Hospital and said the chief of the general staff had ordered an inquiry. The IDF noted that it regrets any harm to uninvolved individuals and does not target journalists as such. The IDF acts to mitigate harm to uninvolved individuals as much as possible while maintaining the safety of the troops, the statement said.
Hamas began this war, created impossible.
Turning to Ukraine now, world leaders have shown strong support for Ukraine as it marks Independence Day in the middle of ongoing conflict with Russia. Germany, Norway and Canada have reaffirmed aid commitments and defence support, while President Zelensky seeks further European-backed weapons. Our correspondent Anita Sharma has this report.
Welcome to This Day in Europe, where Kyiv sees a wave of high-level international support to mark Ukraine's Independence Day, with world leaders reaffirming their commitment amid the ongoing war with Russia. In an unannounced trip to Kyiv, Germany's finance minister and vice chancellor Lars Klingbeil emphasized that Germany remains Ukraine's second largest global backer and the largest within Europe. Klingbeil underscored Ukraine's indispensable role in any future peace process, calling for a ceasefire, security guarantees, and Ukraine's full participation in talks. He said Russia's Vladimir Putin, quote, should have no illusions that Germany's support for Ukraine could crumble. According to his ministry, Germany has contributed $59 billion since the war began, and we just learned Germany has promised another $10.5 billion annually. Meantime, the Norwegian Prime Minister is also in Kyiv and was welcomed by Ukraine's presidential chief of staff, Andrei Yermak, and the foreign minister. Yermak stated, quote, Norway is always close to our people, significantly helps the defenders, and we value this reliable solidarity. The visit comes on the heels of a joint announcement with Germany of a nearly $695 million air defense package, including 2 Patriot systems, advanced radars, and missile capabilities to strengthen Ukraine's defenses. For Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, it was his first official visit to war-torn Ukraine ahead of his scheduled Tuesday stop in Berlin. Carney said he would not rule out the possible deployment of Canadian peacekeepers and confirmed a drone co-production agreement. He detailed Canada's $1.4 billion commitment, first announced at the G7 summit in Canada last June. More than $700 million of that aid will be used to procure high-priority U.S. equipment via NATO's procurement system. In a direct appeal today, President Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukraine is seeking $1 billion in U.S.-made weapons to be financed by European allies. The request builds on an already successful $1.5 billion NATO procurement initiative funded by key partners, including Germany, the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. Zelensky's strategy reflects a shift away from reliance on direct U.S. military aid, creating a structured European-backed channel for long-term weapons procurement. Klingbeil and Carney both reaffirmed that any roadmap to peace must include Ukrainian leadership, binding international guarantees, and broad allied coordination, clearly rejecting unilateral deals or externally imposed compromises. As the world watches, today's coordinated visits to Kyiv send a powerful message. Ukraine is not alone. With key transatlantic allies standing firmly behind Zelensky's vision for defense, sovereignty, and self-determination, The groundwork is being laid for a more resilient and united front against Russian aggression. For A News, I'm Anita Sharma in the Netherlands.
Staying with Ukraine, for people living in the Ukrainian city of Kostiantynivka, life is a daily struggle. Residents face repeated Russian airstrikes and drone attacks. With much of the city in ruins, only a fraction of its population remains.
Kostiantynivka, a key city in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region, has become a front line of relentless Russian attacks. The city has been hit by airstrikes and gliding bombs, most recently on August 25th, when 5 bombs struck residential areas, injuring 3 women and 1 man. Once a bustling hub, Kostiantynivka is now largely deserted. Only 6,000 to 7,000 of the city's original 67,000 residents remain, as most have fled the danger. Shops and residential buildings are heavily damaged, many bearing signs of recent drone strikes. Anti-drone nets cover key checkpoints, while the threat of gliding and fibre optic drones has turned roads into kill zones. Local services are collapsing. Ukraine's state postal service, Ukrposhta, closed its branch in the city due to security concerns, leaving nearby towns as the only functioning hubs for pensions and essential deliveries. Private services shut even earlier. Elderly residents, often unable to leave due to low pensions, some receiving as little as $100 a month, are forced to navigate this hazardous landscape daily. Ukrainian forces continue to defend Kostiantynivka, a vital stronghold on the route to Kramatorsk. Russian troops are positioned just a few kilometers from the city and are advancing in a pincer movement, making the front lines increasingly dangerous.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Sunday that a group of nations, including UN Security Council members, should act as guarantors of Ukraine's security. He noted that President Vladimir Putin had discussed the issue with US President Donald Trump, referencing the failed 2022 Istanbul talks. Putin is demanding Ukraine surrender the Donbass region, abandon NATO ambitions, and ban Western troops from its territory.
On that one, but as regards the security guarantees for Ukraine, those principles proposed by Ukrainian delegation, I underline this once again, they provided for creation a group of guarantors. This group containing of permanent members of the Security Council, Russia, US, China, UK, and France. Plus, they mentioned Germany, Turkey, and any other country which would be interested to join this group of guarantors. And guarantors would be guaranteeing the security of Ukraine, which must be neutral, which must be non-aligned with any military bloc, and which must be non-nuclear.
European leaders are persisting in warning against any land concessions from Ukraine. Russia has openly praised President Donald Trump's efforts to bring the war to an end. However, the central question now becomes how far is the United States prepared to go in persuading the Kremlin, and at what cost, political or territorial, might such an agreement come from Kyiv? Joining us now to examine this evolving situation is Alec Kazman, Director of Protect Ukraine Now. Good evening.
Hi, good to be here.
My first question is, President Donald Trump has only just announced that he might be there for talks with Putin and Zelensky. Do you think that's a good thing that's happening?
Well, if President Trump is able to attend this meeting, it could be a good thing for sure. The thing that concerns us the most at the moment is that this meeting is highly unlikely to happen. And if it does, we'll yet to see of any meaningful results coming out of it. As you just mentioned, Lavrov, who is insisting on demilitarization of Ukraine, neutral status, and there are other concessions that Moscow continues to demand from Ukraine. A lot of it could be very difficult to agree to by Kyiv.
It seems now that the ball is in Moscow's court. Do you think that they're at a better advantage over Ukraine when it comes to the negotiations?
So obviously, Moscow would have to make concessions on their end. There's very little that Ukraine can do at this point. As far as advantage, I don't think Kyiv or US has much leverage. The reality on the ground is such that Putin is interested in continuing his aggression. The only realistic path to peace is actually a very simple principle. The war has to be more expensive for Russia than peace, and this is the only thing that is going to stop Russian aggression.
And could the decision to block Ukraine's use of US-supplied long-range missiles against Russian territory be interpreted as a calculated move to help with a peace deal?
Well, long-range capabilities by Ukraine are obviously necessary to hit oil refineries and other locations, transportation hubs, and other, again, strategic logistical locations for Russia. Definitely something Ukraine needs at the moment, and no doubts Russia is going to try to block it as much as they can. We're hopeful that they're not successful. As you can see, this is very painful for Russia when their oil refineries or other infrastructure is hit by Ukraine, and this works much better than sanctions.
But the fact that now the US is saying that they should not be using those particular missiles, do you think that is a tactical move by the US president to, try to appease Russia?
Well, American president changing his mind about 3-4 times a day. It was all seriousness. I think this is not a strong position, and we're going to see him change his view again. As Americans, we continue to insist that Ukraine must have the ability to hit Russia where it hurts. And again, just recently, President Trump made a very long post on his Truth Social, explaining in details his belief that two countries at war must have the same set of resources and same set of rules, and he was very clear that Ukraine must be able to hit the country aggressor on their territory.
And on Ukraine's Independence Day, President Zelensky received a letter from King Charles III, and in the letter it expressed Ukraine's courage and all that they've been able to accomplish. Why do you think the UK is such an important part of how Zelensky sees that relationship, in contrast to some other European nations?
I believe England was very bold in helping Ukraine. From Zelensky's perspective, I think England may have a little bit more leverage with President Trump, but also just like any partner country, they're an important ally. They have been helping militarily and financially, and hopefully they will continue standing with Ukraine, just like the rest of Europe. And frankly, Europe altogether, they need to step up and provide more military assistance to Ukraine. At the moment, as been said many times, drones defined this war. And what's really needed the most from any ally willing to help Ukraine is investment in scaling that production of unmanned aircrafts. They redefined this war. They move very quickly towards autonomous warfare. Both Russia and Ukraine are in competition for that leadership in technology. And I believe any country willing to support Ukraine, and not only Ukraine, but a free world, stand against authoritarian regimes like China, Iran, North Korea, and of course Russia. Any country willing to defend their freedoms, they need to be on Ukrainian side, helping Ukraine with that technology. Because if Ukraine is going to lose this war, God forbid, that technology winner, the technological winner, is going to turn around other countries, and then we're going to be in very big troubles.
Thank you for joining me this evening, Alec. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Now to Britain, where immigration tensions are spilling out onto the streets. Anti-migrant protests flared again this weekend, but this time outside a hotel in East London. It follows a wave of demonstrations across the country, with the government now under pressure to reform the asylum system and reduce its reliance on housing asylum seekers in hotels.
Anti-migrant protesters gathered outside the Bell Hotel in Epping on Sunday, waving British flags and holding placards. The hotel has become a flashpoint after a court ruling last week ordered the removal of asylum seekers from the site. The government plans to appeal the decision. The protest came just a day after police were forced to separate rival groups across several English cities, including Bristol, Liverpool, Newcastle and Hawley. Mounted officers were deployed in Bristol's Castle Park, while in Liverpool, 11 arrests were made for offences including assault and disorderly conduct. In Hawley, around 200 anti-immigration demonstrators clashed with roughly 50 counter-protesters from Stand Up to Racism. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's Labour government has pledged to phase out hotel use and accelerate asylum decisions. On Sunday, ministers unveiled plans for a new fast-track appeals process, overseen by an independent panel of adjudicators. The aim is to reduce a backlog of more than 100,000 cases, including 51,000 appeals, where applicants are currently waiting over a year for a ruling. Local councils are also considering legal action similar to the case in Epping, while Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has vowed mass deportations if he comes to power. For now, immigration remains one of Britain's most divisive political issues, and one that continues to spill out onto the streets.
Moving to southern Europe, where hundreds of migrants were rescued off the Canary Islands. Spanish Coast Guards brought 248 people, including a newborn baby, children, several women, to safety. Aragrin Negin port on Gran Canaria, the Interior Ministry says migrant arrivals to the Canaries are down nearly 47% this year, compared with last year when the route saw a record number of crossings. The Atlantic Passage from West Africa remains one of the most dangerous migration routes, with rough seas often overturning the fragile boats used by migrants. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan met with his Egyptian counterpart Badr Abdolati on Monday in Jeddah. The two discussed bilateral ties and regional developments, while Fidan prepares to chair the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation session addressing Israel's ongoing assault on Gaza, which has killed more than 62,000 Palestinians since October 2023.
Palestinian state. Gaza is under immense strain.
Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian held a phone call with his Russian counterpart, focusing on a number of regional global issues. Pezeshkian said that Iran remains committed to speed up the construction of Ras-Astara Railway, the key of the north-south corridor linking the Persian Gulf with Russia. He also noted that 3+3 platform is a more effective way to discuss the future of the Caucasus tensions. Vladimir Putin reaffirmed Russia's unwavering support for Iran's uranium enrichment rights. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan made a statement regarding the foundation of the Kurz İktidar Aralek Delaju railway line, a part of a broader Zangezur corridor concept. According to reports from Turkish media, Erdogan also spoke about the areas that will develop as a result of the regular railway line. In his statement, Erdogan emphasized the importance of the railway connection along the Zangezur corridor route. He noted that opening of the railway line will increase production and exports in eastern and southeastern Anatolia, improve transportation infrastructure, and expand the tourism potential of the Mediterranean region. Georgia seems not to be sitting back while Armenia and Azerbaijan edge closer to a Zangezur corridor that could sideline Tbilisi's transit influence. Instead, the country is increasing with speed on international tender now open for supervising the new Batumi-Sarpi highway.
The South Caucasus is entering a new era. Armenia and Azerbaijan are close to a final peace deal which could open the Zangezur corridor, a direct link from Azerbaijan to Turkey. For Georgia, that's a challenge. If cargo moves through Armenia, Tbilisi risks losing part of its role as the region's main gateway. But Georgia is keen to remain a relevant player in regional connectivity by investing in infrastructure projects. The latest step, a new highway between Batumi and Sarpi on the Turkish border. The plan is ambitious: 11 kilometers of road, a tunnel stretching 7.6 kilometers, a bridge almost 1.5 kilometers long, and plus 2 interchanges and coastal protections. Funded by the Asian Development Bank and the state budget, the project is now open for international tenders. Supervision will last 4 years with proposals due by September 2025. The stakes are high. Batumi is Georgia's tourist capital, the heart of the Black Sea coast. A faster, safer road means more trade, more visitors, and more regional ties. So while new corridors may shift the balance in the South Caucasus, Georgia is making sure it remains vital. It's Nini Isreali reporting from Tbilisi, A News.
Japan is strengthening its partnership with Kazakhstan by providing financial aid to support those affected by nuclear testing. During the first official visit of Japan's Foreign Minister Takeshi Iwaya, key agreements were reached to boost trade, investment and collaboration in strategic sectors. Our correspondent Fariza Kalimazana has more.
Japan will provide Kazakhstan with $7.4 million in aid for victims of nuclear testing and is set to deepen its economic cooperation with the country. This announcement came during the official visit of Japanese Foreign Minister Takeshi Iwaya to Astana, his first visit to Kazakhstan in this role. Following talks with Kazakhstan's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Murat Nurtliu, both sides agreed to strengthen trade and economic ties through increased investment, expanded exports and joint projects in strategic sectors. Japan is currently among Kazakhstan's top 10 foreign investors, having contributed over $9 billion in direct investment to date. Last year, bilateral trade approached $2 billion, and the Kazakh side believes there is strong potential to build on this figure. Key areas for future cooperation include the export of non-ferrous and rare earth metals. Kazakhstan supplies 22 of the 32 critical raw materials Japan needs for its green transition. As a result, partnerships are being explored between Kazakhstan's Tauken Samruk and Japan's Oil, Gas and Metals National Corporation. Transport infrastructure also was a key topic during the talks. Japan has pledged support to digitalize customs procedures at the port of Aktau, which is part of the Trans-Caspian International Transport Route. The two sides also agreed to speed up preparations for the Central Asia plus Japan summit, which was postponed last year due to an earthquake in Japan. The meeting is now expected to take place as soon as possible. In addition, a direct flight between Almaty and Tokyo is set to begin in 2026, a move expected to boost business and cultural ties between the two countries. Also, Kazakhstan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Murat Nurtliu announced that discussions took place regarding the organization of an official visit by Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev to Japan, expected to take place before the end of this year. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, A News.
A top United Nations counter-terrorism official has issued a stark warning about ISIS Khorasan, better known as ISIS-K. She says that the group continues to pose a serious threat not only inside Afghanistan but also across Europe and Central Asia. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
Natalia Gurman, Executive Director of the UN Counterterrorism Committee, told the Security Council that ISIS-K is actively recruiting members and raising money through online propaganda campaigns. Her remarks come even as Afghanistan's Taliban rulers, who call themselves the Islamic Emirates, insist that ISIS has been defeated in the country. But security experts say the reality is more complex. ISIS-K formed in 2015 as the Afghan branch of the so-called Islamic State, has carried out some of the deadliest bombings in the region. The group emerged in eastern Afghanistan and pledged allegiance to ISIS global leadership. Unlike the Taliban, whose focus is on ruling Afghanistan, ISIS-K aims to establish transnational Islamic Caliphate. The ideological divide has made the two groups bitter rivals. Since the Taliban's takeover in 2021, ISIS-K has repeatedly targeted Taliban forces, government offices and civilians in deadly attacks. The United Nations say the danger now is that ISIS-K could expand beyond Afghanistan's borders through its digital networks and regional links, raising fears of new violence far outside the country. For now, the Taliban claim victory over ISIS-K, but the UN warns the group remains resilient and very much alive. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for A News.
That's all we have time for now. From all of us in the studio, thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.